My name is Jarno. I come from Thoughtworks. I'm the global head of AI advisory, and been doing the past 15 to 20 years or so these sort of AI and data-driven transformations across different industries. And just wanted to share a few highlights from that journey on what were some of the sort of unexpected things where we could solve really difficult and tough problems. Um, Let me just go and share my screen so we can get to today's agenda. If we look at the sort of history on how we got here, a lot of the toughest business problems, that being driving digital growth or innovation or optimization of complex value chains or forming robust scenarios for the future, I think can be efficiently solved with the help of AI-backed techniques. Not with AI itself, not that AI is the thing that you have to have in order to solve these things, but it can offer some unexpected help. And what I've seen at companies across industries is that if you're not investing in AI, you are leaving a lot of money on the table and you are losing competitive advantage. And for the rest of the talk, I would want to stop talking about AI per se. And throughout the talk, we're going to split it into two. So based on like looking at all of the different industries and looking at all of the different organizations and businesses, I think there's two parts to doing AI. Like fundamentally, AI is decision making. It is trying to amplify or augment or optimize or automate decisions that are made in companies. If we look at an average Fortune like 100 company, I think they make on average around 400 million decisions per day. Some of those are strategic, some of them are creative, some of them are tactical, and some of them are operational. And another thing that sort of characterizes decision making in companies is that the strategic and creative ones often have sort of long human centric feedback loops. So it may take years for us to say that, yeah, that was the right choice. On the other hand, if you look at tactical and operational problems, a lot of the feedback loops are autonomous. They work on digital platforms. They are repetitive, and we can act on it like pretty fast. We can learn that something was the right choice or the wrong one pretty fast, and do that with pretty high accuracy. So, working with all of these companies, we sort of found out that if we split it into two, we can start to think like what approaches can we have to bring unexpected help to all of these decision making problems. If we think that AI is the fundamental help for decision making, what is it that we should do in order to get there? So on the left, we have strategic and creative choices where we do decision science. So combining the ideas from applied data science, management sciences, and behavioral sciences to reinvent and upskill decision making throughout the company. And on the right, we have the optimization and automation of these tactical and operational decisions, where the goal is not to reinvent so much so that it is to optimize and automate and learn at scale. And looking at some of the things we've done, this is just from our project portfolio. So if you look at it globally across different companies, you can see a lot more concrete outcomes. But we look at, let's drive digital growth. We can bring unexpected help with specific techniques to create really concrete outcomes. We can get closer to 100% increases in click-throughs, almost 5% in sales, even for a large multinational company, and so on. What I think is interesting is we've also done a lot of work in fostering innovation. How can we do computational creativity? We did the world's first machine learning made whiskey. Now we're working with Mondelez to reinvent how they do research and development. We've done a lot of work with designing the future. So how could we look for strategic scenarios for, let's say, sustainability? How can a big company go carbon neutral? How can a big company go towards zero CO2 in 10 years? What are the best scenarios in doing so? Can we offer some unexpected help through scenario simulation into a strategy process to actually make it more robust, to actually make it more efficient and high quality? And I think the fundamental thing that has sort of stopped us before from achieving success is that we think that AI is the thing that solves these problems. Whereas I think the secret sauce is sort of how we weave in AI backed techniques to actually solve these problems. What is unexpected help for driving digital growth? And if we ask companies, what are the barriers to AI adoption? This is from 2021. If we look at company culture not recognizing the need for AI, 14%. Difficulties in identifying appropriate business use cases, 17%. So over 30% in just like not understanding where can we actually offer help. And then on the other side, if we look at technical infrastructure challenges, 12%. Lack of data quality, 18%. Again, a third of problems related to technology and data issues. And what I found is that technical things, data things, and the mental models we need to recognize the need for AI and sort of identifying appropriate business use cases are all things we could solve today, right now. If we look at the first one, data quality as issues, I think like it's a fundamental problem in AI that we say that we need data to start on AI. But if we look at the business problems, many of the most impactful ones don't need AI, don't need data to begin with. If we look at large scale optimization, we work on constraints. We don't work on the data on how it was previously optimized because that represents a non-optimized state. If we look at decision science, how can we improve strategy? How can we improve scenario planning? How can we improve the generation of recipes? It doesn't need a lot of historical data, data warehousing, or data platforms to go there. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do data warehousing and data platforms because they have a lot of fundamental value for businesses. What I'm saying is a lot of the most interesting things we're doing in AI as of today are not data intensive problems. And one of the best sort of examples from this is automated tactical decision making or personalization. If we run techniques like reinforcement learning, we can start to see that how can we say that we need historical data to tell us what customers want next? What if we could do this sort of controlled exploration of new possibilities and futures and choices and actions and try to learn from that in real time? What if we didn't need to have all of this data about customers that's sensitive in GDPR, but we could actually do really intelligent personalization with less and less customer data? Because if we look at historical data, that represents a biased view on what customers have wanted in the past. So we have to be smart about how we create these systems and what they actually mean for businesses. So number one, data quality issues can be circumvented by thinking that actually a lot of the most impactful business problems don't need data to begin with. We have to look at it from both sides. We can solve the data thing, but we can solve the AI thing from another sort of angle and another approach. For 2 and 3, the problems in recognizing the need for AI and trying to identify the right business cases, I think a lot of the problems why we cannot bring unexpected help is because we don't have any means of communicating what AI is to business leaders. Because when we say AI, it really sort of diverts us from what it actually is. Because if we look at the solutions that we've done for future R&D, for scenario planning, for strategy, we can say that AI is for strategic and creative problems too. It's not only for solving tactical and operational problems. Even more fundamentally, I think it is important to say that AI is not the art of trying to force value out of historical data, but it's actually a really good way of interacting with the world and learning in real time and learning something new about customers. So I think if we keep those in mind, we should design mental models and frameworks that allow us to create that culture and create that understanding that allows us to communicate value. And if we can do that, it gives us the opportunity to actually bring unexpected help. Because fundamentally, if you look at business problems, like how can you solve business problems in a sustainable way, it has to start with people. People have to have the need and desire to take the new approaches and new technologies and new tools into their day-to-day use. If that's missing, nothing else will work as well. So we have to get the mental models in place. And I'm going to come back to what a mental model could be. The fourth problem, like technical architecture problems and delivery problems in a more general sense, I think they're like looking at all of the customers that I've worked with. AI is, we should treat it with the same sort of mindset and rigor that we do software engineering, design, and strategy, because it's all of those things. A lot of AI is design. If you look at AI as decision science, if you look at it as a practice on how to improve strategic decision making, a lot of it is design. So a lot of it will then sort of comply to what we know about design thinking. How can we get people to behave in a certain way? We don't need like AI models for delivery. We need software engineering models and rigor. We need design models and rigor, and we need strategy models and strategy rigor. Because AI fundamentally is just software, but it's software in a sense where data plays a big role, like input data plays a big role. A lot of the companies that I've worked with, a big barrier has been that we see it mostly as this experimental projects only thing, where when we should actually look at it as we should create long-lasting business value across domains and industries. We should try to solve it at scale. Because if you go and ask a company doing AI on what is it that they do, the most likely answer will point you to, okay, they're doing point solutions. You have a point solution for a chatbot, you have a point solution for dynamic pricing, you have a point solution for personalization, you have a point solution for understanding customer feedback. I think we should start looking at AI on how to actually scale it for enterprise needs. Because if the Fortune like 100 company does 400 million decisions per day, it doesn't really matter if we just try to impact like 0.1% of it. We should try to aim for 5 or 10 or 20 or 50% of it to actually make a dent on how the business is run. So I think that sort of points us to, we should understand how we talk about and lead AI so that we take all of these mindsets and rigor from software engineering, design, and strategy into account in the right place at the right time. And like I mentioned the mental model, like one mental model of how to bring in unexpected help. We can draw two axes, like the bottom axis, the x-axis. We can look at decision-making problems in companies as a continuum from strategic and creative problems that you make infrequently, that are dramatically important for business success, that have long human-based feedback loops. On the left, you have tactical and operational problems where you have high frequency, usually digital feedback loops. And I think that's pretty clear. But looking at the leaders in the field, what I think they're doing right is that they see that AI has a lot of value specifically in problems in high ambiguity, in high uncertainty, where there's little data volume at play. Because so far we've been thinking that AI is this thing where you take a bunch of data and try to extract value out of it. But actually, I think we should think about AI as partnering with it. How can we do really intelligent personalization so that we can learn about customers at the same time? Reinforcement learning brings us the tools to do that. What if we thought about our strategy process and scenario processes and future simulation? Would you want to do this really complex decision-making process with humans only, with computers only, or with partnering machines with people and with experts? I think a lot of people will say that, yeah, I want to partner. Yeah, I want to understand how to actually do this at scale. And future simulation, as an example, is a perfect example where you have a strategic problem and you have a high uncertainty. So you don't see a lot of data companies working in that field. Yet, if you think about the problem, you have this really complex problem, and you have these tools that data people have, simulation tools, agent-based models, scenario simulation. These all apply to strategic problems, but because we've seen AI as this thing that fits on historical data, I think it stops our thinking on what it can actually do. So what I would want what I would want everyone to sort of get is that unexpected help often comes in circumstances where you have high uncertainty and high ambiguity. AI offers a lot of tools that are interactive. We can interact with customers, we can learn in real time, we can interact with experts and business leaders so that we can create better simulations about our own future. We can work with people in R&D to create systems that allow them to do innovation more efficiently, and with a higher chance of success. And this is not to say that we should stop doing AI for tactical and operational problems and data intensive problems. We should absolutely do that. But if we allow ourselves to see the sort of big picture of where we can actually apply it, it gives us the possibility to bring in unexpected help to places where it is really much needed. And from that, I think we have two approaches of doing AI. The decision factory for tactical and operational problems, where we want to automate and we want to optimize and we want to bring in insight at scale. So we treat it as mostly a technological effort. And then we have the practice approach, where we combine management sciences, design sciences, and applied data science to reinvent and upskill how we do decision making throughout the company. And these two approaches need different people and they need different stakeholders. But if we can get that to work, we can work on so much more problems than we have worked on so far. So what I would do, and this is what I'm going to end with today, is that if I were in charge of this phenomenon at a company, I would visualize the future state. What is the future of the company? How does it create value? Where do we want to go? And based on where do we want to go, let's look at the mental model of data and AI competencies and skills. Can we work on uncertainty or not? Can we work on tactical and operational, or strategic and creative, or both? And what are the approaches we should take? And then do it in thin slices. Do it so that we can create value as fast as we can. And these are the takeaways from me today on how to bring in unexpected help to solve really difficult business problems. Let me see the chat if there's questions. This is one. In my experience as a machine learning engineer, the biggest problem is lack of insight by C-level execs. I've absolutely seen that, and I think that's why it's so important. It is so important to create the mental models on how should we talk about this thing, because so far I've seen a lot of companies sort of they hit like a roadblock when they say that, yeah, we've now built this AI team and we have this AI competence, but like, why should the business leader care? It is really hard to bring it to the decision-making table just saying that it's AI and just saying that we can prove value, because you have to have a way of communicating it like in a much more day-to-day way for the business people. And from that, I think if we start looking at AI as a means of amplifying, automating, and optimizing decision-making throughout the company, from strategic and creative to tactical and operational, and what are the approaches of doing so, at least from my experience, we have gotten much further in terms of creating the sort of cultural pull on this is probably actually really meaningful for the company. This is actually something that I would want to do. This is actually something that could bring in unexpected help. And it's also, I think another big point is, because you have to start with people, you have to be sort of really appreciative of what is it that they do today. We have to say that, like, AI is not the tool to reinvent how to do innovation. People will still be better at innovation than machines. But we can say that we can bring unexpected help to specific parts of every business problem if we just look at it from a certain perspective. And we can do that in a way that it should make everyone's lives a bit easier. And I think it's really good that we're sort of going down on the AI hype curve so that we can actually get to meaningful results. But I think that's a great point. I'm seeing it like across all of the companies. I don't see like specific questions on the chat. I'm gonna be at Gather on the Speak Lounge. So feel free to reach out, ask questions there if you want. Also, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever you want. I'm happy to respond any questions that you may have. Thanks a lot for listening today.